You guys asked for it, so here you go, Dungeon Masters. Let's talk about how to kill your party with Gnolls. Let's start by taking a closer look at Gnolls in the default setting for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, the Forgotten Realms. The first thing we want to take note of is their demonic origin. Gnolls were created by Yeenoghu, the demon lord of slaughter and senseless destruction. And this is significant when it comes to understanding Gnolls and their motivations. As Yeenoghu hunted down his victims while on the material plane, a band of hyenas followed him, consuming the remains, and becoming what we now know as Gnolls. As such, Gnolls are an embodiment of Yeenoghu's destructive nature, driven by their insatiable hunger and desire to see all around them turned into a barren wasteland. And Yeenoghu's influence over the race of Gnolls is as strong as any demon lord or deity's connection to a race here on Faerun. He even goes so far as to send visions and dreams to his followers as both omens and instructions to facilitate their continued destructive path. Gnolls are scavengers. No warbands do not make. They don't truly have the capacity to create and instead simply acquire, meaning that their armor is patchworked, pieced together from bits of dwarven armor mixed with human armor, mixed with elven armor. Their weapons are as much trophies from their kills as they are tools of war. Their meals are made up of whatever they hunt down, as well as anything they might have simply come across. If a battle has taken place nearby, a Gnoll warband would be more than happy to pick over the scraps, consuming the remains of any fallen warriors and claiming any useful equipment for themselves. This gives us Dungeon Masters some really nice imagery to play with when introducing a Gnoll warband to our players. And it also creates a nice opportunity to plausibly help our players acquire some magical weapons and armor if, of course, they can successfully defeat the warband and claim their equipment for themselves. Gnolls despise cities. Cities represent everything that Gnolls hate, and they would love nothing more than to see Yeenoghu's vision of pure destruction come to fruition, eradicating these towns, villages, and societies. As such, Gnoll packs stick purely to living out in the wilderness. Even if they manage to overrun a small village, they're inclined to scavenge what they can and just burn anything remaining down to the ground. Gnoll warbands attract hyenas. It's rare to come across a Gnoll warband without a pack of hyenas following behind. While Gnolls don't place a particularly high value on the beasts, Gnoll Fangs of Yeenoghu, the chosen of the Demon Lord, have the ability to spawn more Gnolls by imbuing the remains of their victims with the power to transform these hyenas into Gnolls whenever they consume these remains. As such, it's common for hyenas to gather near a Fang of Yeenoghu when in combat, eager to partake in the flesh of the fallen foes, something for us Dungeon Masters to take note of when it comes to creating encounters involving Gnoll warbands. All Gnolls speak Abyssal. While their core language involves a series of whines and clicks when communicating with each other, all Gnolls understand and, on a basic level, speak Abyssal, furthering their ties to their demonic heritage. This is a nice little bit of flavoring here for DMs to create a bit of separation from Gnolls and goblinoids or orcs. And finally, Gnoll warbands also attract the occasional cultist of Yeenoghu. These are crazed servants of the Demon Lord, eager to prove themselves. Though while a pack might accept a human into their ranks, they're also treated as lesser beings just above hyenas. And as such, it would be rare to find a non-Gnoll cultist leading a warband. Okay, let's take a quick look at how we can actually use Gnolls in our D&D campaigns. But first, I want to give a huge shout out to my sponsor for this video, Miniature Market. Guys, I've been shopping at Miniature Market since 2015, and I cannot recommend them enough to gamers. Their prices are killer, and their selection is unlike anything you're going to find anywhere else. Board games, RPGs, card games, miniature, those hard to find DM screens, tiny train, limited edition D&D covers. Whatever you're looking for, Miniature Market is the go-to if you're a gamer like me. I'll throw a link down in the description below for you guys to go and check them out for yourself. Okay, so I'm going to be honest here and tell you that as presented in the Forgotten Realms, Gnolls are pretty straightforward. But that being said, there are still plenty of interesting ways that we can use them in our D&D campaigns to create a more memorable experience for our players. The first way is pretty obvious in having a hunting party as a serious threat to your PCs during times of travel, tracking them for days in hopes of catching them unprepared. This can give us a very Lord of the Rings flavor for the dangerous trek through the wilderness with an ever-looming threat, creating a tense situation for the players. This is a good time to lay on that fretful atmosphere. Maybe the players hear the loud whines off in the distance for several nights, and they know they must move with urgency. Break out the optional rules for travel and exhaustion, perhaps even have the group constantly engage with the warband when they try to rest, just enough to keep the wizard and cleric from regaining spell slots in several hit and run attacks. All the while, the players can never get a good grasp on how many enemies they are actually up against. Just because the players are up against a simple Gnoll warband out in the wilderness doesn't mean that their encounter with them can't be a memorable one. If you're going to go this route though, I highly suggest you spend some time thinking about how to create a white-knuckled tone for your players and game setting. The next route we can go is to play up their demonic connections. We don't want Gnolls to just feel like orcs. We want them to have their own flavor at the table. And what better way than to couple them with a few actual demons? I, for one, love the imagery of the Vrock and find it a fitting companion, if you could call it that, with its vulture-like appearance. And again, it's one of those demonic fiends that just checks all the right boxes, so to speak. Vulture scavenger, demon, dull-witted, with a taste for humanoid flesh. But really, any demonic fiend from the Abyss could make a lot of sense here, and having the Gnolls communicate with a demon among their ranks in Abyssal while engaged with the PCs could go a long way in setting the tone for your players that a Gnoll warband is no orc tribe. And of course, if you do decide to go this route, you'll want to spend at least a little time coming up with a plausible reason that these demons are walking among the mortal plane, at least if you're planning on expanding that storyline. A good starting point could be to just look at Yeenoghu himself. After all, he is a demon lord of the Abyss and could easily force lesser demons into his servitude. Or another route we could go is to consider having the Gnolls be a weapon for some other master, perhaps even unknowingly. We could still get all the flavor of Gnolls, but with a deeper storyline for our players than you encounter some Gnolls in the woods and they want to kill you, go figure. What if we had a villain take advantage of the Gnolls' unending hunger to their own bidding? What might happen if a Night Hag Coven, as a little callback here, sent the Gnolls visions from Yeenoghu while they slept? Or perhaps a corrupted druid bent on revenge against someone who wronged them? Or even a drow incursion cleverly herding the starved warband towards a village, softening up the drow's target before a full-on raid. Even though the Gnoll is a pretty straightforward creature in its motivations, that doesn't mean that we can't layer in some complexity to add a little depth to our overall story arcs. Okay, now let's look at a few ways that we can just give Gnolls a little tweak and a little twist to might shake things up for players that might already be familiar with them. The first twist I have for you is to humanize them by making a group of Gnolls victims to their own hunger. Perhaps a group of Gnolls desires nothing more than to free themselves from the forced servitude of Yeenoghu, desperate to rid themselves of their unending hunger and savage instincts. Maybe the Gnolls view a life of relentless killing in Yeenoghu's name akin to throwing themselves on the sword for a master who just doesn't value their lives. How would your players react to a Gnoll pack who hasn't necessarily turned to a life of good deeds, but who doesn't desire mindless rampage either? What if the Gnolls have learned of a way to break their metaphysical bonds with Yeenoghu and beseech the players who may have even been hired by a local township to hunt the pack down after their discovery to help them instead? What if the Gnolls refuse to take up arms against the players at all, preferring death to a constant, miserable existence? I think it's a fascinating opportunity to see how a player might react in a situation where a chaotic evil being refuses to even defend themselves, begging for help from them instead. And another twist to add to your Gnoll encounters is to make your Gnolls disease-ridden. I'm talking full-on carrion-like diseases. The Dungeon Master's Guide lists some really great options for you, and one that I like in particular is cackle fever. Again, it's all about the flavor here, as these mange-ridden scavenger Gnolls could potentially spread a disease to players who come into contact with them, causing them to break out in a fit of mad laughter. The synergy here with the hyena, a creature famous for its whining cackle, is just filled with wonderful imagery. And if we're looking to possibly tie back in another villain, like say those night hags we mentioned earlier, I could even picture a coven of hags entering into a bargain with a Gnoll warband that would give them the power to stop their foes dead in their tracks just from their pure aura around them. And you could even go so far as to occasionally make the hyena-like Gnolls succumb to this effect themselves while they are in the throes of combat with the PCs. After all, hags love suffering, right? Regardless of who it is suffering, and the Gnolls are bound to be on the losing end of any agreement struck with a coven of hags. This also gives us a nice little opportunity to let that paladin in the party shine with their 3rd level ability, Divine Health, making them immune to disease, which is probably one of, if not the most underutilized class abilities in the game anyways. So now it's time to pass it over to you, the community, to see what you guys think. Do you have any fun experiences with Gnolls in your game? What kind of creative ways do we have to both use them at the table, and what kind of twists do you have for us to use? Also, as a final thought here, do you like the way that Wizards of the Coast has presented them in Dungeons & Dragons 5e? Or do you think that they're a little maybe too straightforward? I want to give a huge shout out to all of the kick-ass patrons over at WelcomeAdventures.com. Guys, it's because of you that I can continue doing what I love to do and making more content like this. So if you like this video, you want to see more content like this while snagging some rewards for yourself, a great way to support the channel is at WelcomeAdventures.com. If this is your first time here and you love role-playing games as much as I do, I'd love to have you subscribe. Every week I put out new videos on GM tips, player tips, tutorials, and more. So if that sounds like something you might be interested in, just hit that subscribe button right there down below and come join us. Thank you guys so much for watching. My name is Cody, and may your games be filled with awesome memories and even better friends. I'll catch you guys next time.
Yeah.